The very first Comedy for a Cure, we started very humbly.
Yeah, the event grows every year.
Yeah. Last year we raised $588,000.
Wow!
Yeah. So there's something magical.
Hey, I'm Greg Grunberg, and welcome to Talk About It, the podcast where we focus on topics that everybody should be talking about, and hopefully they will be. Not only talking, but screaming about.
Epilepsy shouldn't keep you from doing anything that you want to do.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
While we will continue our focus on epilepsy, of course, we will also look at other health conditions and causes. Our goal is to knock down, drag out, and eliminate stigma and raise awareness. Each episode, you're going to hear from amazing advocates and champions. You will learn, as I will, about how we can all help to make a real difference.
Talking about it is important. It's all about connecting.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Thank you for talking about it.
Thank you for talking about it.
Talk About It is sponsored by Seizures Are Signs. Seizures Are Signs is dedicated to educating those living with or caring for someone with uncontrolled seizures about the importance of early diagnosis, recognition, and treatment. To learn more, please visit seizuresaresigns.com. Seizures Are Signs is made available by Jazz Pharmaceuticals. All right, so let's jump right into this episode of Talk About It. On this episode of Talk About It, we continue our series on epilepsy innovators in advocacy and business. I've known Kari Luther Rosbeck and Lisa Moss for a very long time. These are two amazing women who are heroes in the epilepsy community. Kari and Lisa have dedicated their lives to helping families with TSC. So we are going to talk about TSC and the TSC Alliance. We're going to share our caregiver stories and talk about how important it is to actually find comedy and laughter as we all work towards awareness and a cure. All that and much more on this episode of Talk About It. Every so often, as happens in Hollywood, when someone is doing a great movie or something, and they just don't think of their friends. They just don't think of the people that they're like, wait a minute, they would be the greatest guests on the podcast. It's been years. We've had years of this. You and I, the three of us have known each other. We've worked together. I've supported Comedy for a Cure for so long. Absolutely. I love you guys so much. Why have we not done this?
We're so honored to be here.
Oh, shut up with that, honored. We're friends. No, but this is awesome. Thank you for saying that. I'm honored that you guys had the time. By the time this airs, we will have had the 22nd Comedy for a Cure, which is coming up in a few days, that I'm going to be, well, we can talk about it because...
Yes, it'll be over.
It'll be over, yeah. But if you're not familiar with Comedy for a Cure, you need to check it out. Google it, go, check it out, whatever. It supports TSC Alliance, which we'll talk about in a second. But thank you guys for coming in.
Absolutely.
So take me back, like way back. Like how did the whole journey start? And then we'll talk about how you guys came together and are working together. But how did it start for you in the world of TSC or supporting and having a great event like this?
Yeah, so I got introduced to TSC when my son was diagnosed with tuberous sclerosis complex, or TSC for short, much easier to say.
What is it? Let's for people that are listening that don't know what it is.
It's a rare disease. It causes tumors to grow in vital organs, and it also is a leading known genetic cause for epilepsy and major cause for autism as well. So, and it's variable. So everybody, even though you would think it would be the same for everybody, everyone is different, and even identical twins can have different manifestations.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because we talk about all the time how when you want to open up and talk about whatever it is you're going through, epilepsy or not, you want to look in a mirror. You literally want to just find that person that our kids are the same sex, they're the same age, they're going through the same thing, they have the same severity of the disease or whatever, and you're never going to find that.
That's right.
And for years, for us at least, Elizabeth and I were like, well, oh, that kid's in a wheelchair, and oh, that kid's been seizure-free for 25 years. And you know what I mean? Like, you're never going to find and you don't need to. You absolutely don't need to. You're going to learn from people that care as much as you do. Anyway,
Right.
so okay.
Yeah, so he was born with 4 brain tumors and started having seizures when he was just a few weeks old.
What is that like when the doctors tell you that there are 4 brain tumors?
It was kind of strange because it started with seizures. Like he started having these little tiny seizures, and found out that he had seizures. They did an MRI and found these tumors, and we call them tubers because they don't really grow, but it's this non-functioning mass that sort of irritates the brain tissue surrounding it and causes epilepsy.
And depending on where they are in the brain, you can remove them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, what's really weird is when the doctor says, okay, we've seen this on his MRI on his brain, but don't worry about it. We're just going to watch it. And I think that's a little unsettling, especially the first time you hear that.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't have to hear that more than once. But the first time you hear that, it's really unsettling. And so we just kind of waited and watched and kept changing meds when he would have seizures. And, the seizures just increased. And so by the time he was 4, he was having 30 seizures a day and did have brain surgery.
Did have brain surgery. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And did the brain surgery help?
Temporarily.
Yeah.
So
we know what that's like. Jake had frontal lobe resection, F1 resection, they called it. And brain surgery did work for Jake. But then, of course, your brain, at that point, his brain had already learned to have seizures. That was like kind of the go-to for Jake's brain. His brother sick in the house or whatever, he would have a seizure. So it was tough. So it worked, but then
for about 2 years, we had no seizures, which was amazing. And then Christmas Eve, Evan used to get excited and he would have seizures. It would trigger seizures.
Yeah,
so
that's why we're Jewish.
Yeah, right.
You know what? We're not. It's only because we don't want seizures. We're not religious at all. By the way, comedy for a cure. We're going to laugh as much as we can. Nick, any zingers, any insults, throw them out. Okay, come on. But wow. Yeah. So it's those moments where it's that anticipatory excitement. Yeah.
Yeah. Walked into his room and he was having, full on seizure, everything moving, lasting a long time through his body, off the bed. I mean, it was really dramatic. And so that was started a new era of seizures for him.
And at that time you had the TSC diagnosis?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old is he now?
19.
19. What's up?
19.
Love that. All right. Backstory.
Yes, backstory. So Comedy for a Cure, we started planning the first one in 2001.
Yep.
That was my first year at the TSC Alliance. So although I don't have a child with TSC,
right,
I did lose a child to sudden infant death. So my whole job coming into the TSC Alliance when I first started was to form a grassroots movement. Go across the country, start our volunteer branches, meet in people's living rooms, conference rooms, church basements, hospital conference rooms. And that's what we did. And Comedy for a Cure, which has become our big national signature event, was part of that grassroots swell.
Let's go back just for a second.
Yes.
So it was SIDS, not SUDEP.
No. SIDS, sudden infant death.
Right. And so although they're very similar, I mean, in that, but SUDEP can affect any sudden unexpected death due to epilepsy or death in epilepsy.
That's right.
That can occur in adults and does unfortunately occur in adults. So how old?
2 months and 6 days
2
old.
months and 6 days.
What's really kind of crazy is the way I got to the TSC Alliance through a career in international development, relief and development. And then coming to the TSC Alliance was almost a calling. And then I went to this Curing the Epilepsies conference at NIH, right? And they brought up on a screen when SUDEP was really first being talked about, right? There was SUDEP on this side of the screen and SIDS on this side of the screen. And they said, we think that SIDS might be SUDEP, but we don't understand the causative. Like, is it the first seizure these infants have had, or do their parents not recognize them?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting, because they still don't have a reason for, like, I remember it's like, are they face down in a pillow? Is it the saliva that's causing this airlock and they're not getting oxygen? Like but it absolutely could be the first time they have a seizure.
Is there something in their brain stem? My daughter had projectile vomiting, almost like now that I look back on it, almost like a gastrointestinal seizure.
Okay.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, there is something wrong. And we kept going back to the doctor and going back to the doctor saying, this is not normal.
Yeah.
And they kept changing her formula and changing her formula and changing her formula.
Yeah.
And I remember she'd have these, I don't know, weird spells almost. Mm-hmm. Maybe they were seizures looking back. It was almost like absence.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm so happy that you have stuck with this and helped, because that's the one thing that I have heard from, when we were at UCLA and then this hospital, and I'm helping wherever I can in any way that I can. And they're like, yeah, as soon as Jake gets under control, you'll be gone. Because, it's like you move on with your life and whatever, but like you said, it's a calling, and you guys are making such a difference.
Coming up on Talk About It.
Somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, I have a little thing I need to raise money for. Like, what's the first thing that you tell people?
Look towards sponsors and the corporate connections, foundation connections to really elevate the bottom line. So you walk in the door in a really good position.
Yeah. Never give up. Never give up. If I'm learning something from this podcast, it is just to stick with the plan. Stick with that therapy. And if it's not working, discuss it with your doctor and your epileptologist, your neurologist, and then you can make an informed decision to, okay, let's pivot, because there are so many great options out there. But just never give up. I'm constantly reminded of a quote that my son lives by, that Jake lives by, and we've talked about it, and he's shared it here on the podcast, which is a quote from Rocky. And it's like, it's I'm going to butcher it, but it's, it's not about how hard you get hit. No. It's not about how hard you hit, but about how hard you get hit and get up and keep moving forward. All right. Well, I know that's a horrible Rocky, and that's probably a misquote, but you get the idea. Just keep going. Keep going. So how did you guys come together? Because on your own, you're both so smart and powerful, and but together, it's like talk about like a Marvel movie. This is
should have brought our leather.
Seriously, Wonder Twin powers activate. Boom.
TSC Expanded Universe.
So tell me how you met.
So I guess it was after Evan was diagnosed. Well, Rob and I had a meeting with you and
Tim,
and we talked about, they asked us to be Community Alliance chairs for the Metro DC area. So basically being volunteers, kind of like a first point of contact for other families.
Oh, nice.
Getting diagnosed with TSC and, host a party here and there, walk, that kind of thing as well, gatherings.
Encouraging people to...
Talk about
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's probably how we first got involved.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
and then
met.
Watched in awe as Lisa and Rob really raised Evan and Aria with such courage and grace and humor. And then Evan did a book, and they raised a bunch of money for a seizure dog. And we were in need of a really dynamic donor relations person. And I'm like, so I call her up. I'm like, and we were in between. Would you be interested in a contract?
Right.
Short term?
Right.
And she was so good. And she's the expert at building relationships. And after a while, I'm like, why don't you apply for this open job? And though she hadn't had years of experience in development,
right.
she had all of the immediate and necessary skills to be an awesome fundraiser.
And it's instinctive. It's like, you got to know how. You got to be obviously a people person, but not just everybody can do it. I mean, it's this well that you feel like, I got to go back to this well and keep at. Right. But if you do it right, people feel inclusive. They feel like it's their event. Everybody. I mean, I've been to Comedy for a Cure.
Yeah.
Everybody there feels like, really, I'm not complimenting you just to say that. It's like everybody feels like, this is ours. This is like, there's an ownership and a responsibility that everybody feels.
Yeah.
When we're on stage, I'm like, is this your board meeting? Like everybody is like, yeah, woohoo! It's like in Blazing Saddles when they're like, you got the drunk guy in the corner. No, but everybody is so into it and so positive and so much. And obviously the fun of it.
Yeah.
It's a fun night, even though it's a very serious night. So was that a challenge right away? Where you're like, oh, now it's real. Now I've really got to and numbers. You got to now prove yourself.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I think one of the things coming into it is I had such a good sense of the community, the TSC community, because I'd been part of it for so long already. Right. And then because my husband and I had started Seizure Tracker, and so we would be at the same like American Epilepsy Society meeting.
Sure.
And so I knew the corporate people too, and so I kind of felt like coming in, I knew the staff, I knew the board, I knew I knew who I was going to be talking to some degree, and I think that really helped. And I don't know, maybe I was too crazy to be scared of the numbers, but I just don't remember being afraid of that. And we did those 2 events on contract, and they were really successful, and it just kind of fit together. It came together really smoothly, and it felt right, I guess.
Was it called Comedy for a Cure back then?
So she did 2 different events
right.
before Comedy for a Cure.
Right, that was my point.
Yeah, that was before Comedy for a Cure.
Okay, and what were the theme of those? Like, how do you tackle something? Somebody's listening to this right now, and they're like, I have a little thing I need to raise money for. Like, what's the first thing that you tell people? Because by the way, and I talked about this in the last episode, we tried to raise money for UCLA. Yeah. The event cost $90,000, and we raised $105,000. I was like, I could have written that check, and I wouldn't hate all these people. It's all parents of kids that have an issue, and it was so hard, and we all worked so hard to do it. What was the theme? Like, what do you tell people?
Yeah, the 2 events we did a walk on the National Mall.
Oh, yeah.
And then we also did Art for a Cure, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. All the artwork made by individuals with TSC and auctioned off. And I think the key to the events, to making them really raise more money, is to look towards sponsors and the corporate connections, family connections, foundation connections, for sponsorships to really elevate the bottom line. So you walk in the door in a really good position.
Yeah, no question. Or you continue your podcast in a really good position. We both, and just transparency, Jazz Pharmaceuticals is your overall, what do you call it, the sponsor?
Headliner sponsor.
Headliner sponsor. Yeah. And also Seizures Are Signs is our sponsor, right. and it's made possible by Jazz Pharmaceuticals, and I've partnered with them on the Caregiver series, and I mean they're very, very active and supportive of so many things. So when did Comedy for a Cure happen? Like that name alone, I mean, you want to raise enough money, just sell that name.
That's right.
It's so powerful. Who came up with it? When did it happen?
So it's trademarked too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And of course, there have been others that have tried to use it. And right. So the first meeting was held in the fall of 2001, a gathering of Southern California families. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, we want to put together an event that we can continue to do for years to come. So Mark Hyman actually hosted this event at his house. He's an internist here in Southern California. And he knew some comedians. And he said, I really think we should do a comedy night. And everybody's like, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And so the very first Comedy for a Cure was in 2002 at the Laugh Factory. So we started very humbly.
Yeah.
The Laugh Factory gave us a venue, provided the comedians.
Awesome.
Right? And we had the pre-event reception where people actually brought in their own wine glasses to serve the wine.
That's hilarious.
Those were the early days.
Yeah.
Trisha Heaton, Jennifer Love Hewitt were the first hosts.
Oh my God, Love is a really, really, really good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. She's the best. She's
awesome.
Yeah.
Cece York, their publicist, was the co-chair that year along with Christy Hobart, and so she got Patricia Heaton and Love to come in and do that early event. We've
awesome.
Always been so blessed with so many celebrities that have come out and supported our events, and you among them.
At the top.
At the top.
I mean, use that headline term.
Absolutely.
You're speaking to the headline. No,
That's right.
What I love is that, when you go to an event and something that's any of these events, epilepsy sucks. TSC sucks. It's just the condition itself. And so to just automatically go, it's called Comedy for a Cure, guys.
Right.
We all need, and the way we deal with seizures in our house, at times is you have to laugh
have
at
to
times.
have humor.
Yeah, because it's out of your control. And I'm not saying that's why, but yes, a day that you can go, a night, an event where you can go, okay, I'm just going to, I'm going to be reminded of how important this is, but I want to pour money at something that's like, take me away. Let me laugh.
That's right.
I recognize these people. And you always have such amazing people at the events. So that began this journey. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing.
That's right. Yep.
And then our band played. So for people that don't know, because Band from TV was the first celebrity band that we started. Now we have a band called the Action Figures. Ooh. But Band from TV, you can see here, James Denton and Jesse Spencer and Bob Guinea and that handsome guy on the drums. But it's a celebrity cover band. There's Adrian Pazdar, Scott Grimes, Nick Marzak, our music director in the band. There's Chris Kelly. But we were, doing this. This is so many years ago.
That was.
How did we find each other? How did you guys find us? I forgot.
Terry Hatcher?
Oh, Terry Hatcher. That's right. Terry was singing with the band whenever she could. And
by the way, I think we have video of the Band from TV.
Oh yeah. Now,
this is.
Oh yeah. There's Aaron.
This is from Comedy for a Cure, right?
This is Comedy for a Cure. Look at this.
Oh my God.
There's John Sarna. We got Barry Sarna there. This footage, and you can hear this, or if you're just listening to the podcast right now, the quality of the music is phenomenal, but you can't tell. This is so old that this is like, this was like we had an illustrator having to do this.
This was shot on rotoscope.
It was shot on rotoscope. But the event was top notch. I remember just being blown away by the Avalon Theater.
Yeah.
And they hold so many different events there.
And you have a hat on, Greg, that you look like.
Where's my hat?
Hold on, you're coming.
Am I coming
camera
up?
pans back. You look like Heisenberg from Breaking Bad.
Wait, Jesse's got a hat on. There's my.
Say my name.
By the way, I look more like my son Jake in this than I do. Oh man, look at that.
This is great, man.
I love the pork pie hat.
Yeah.
So I remember that, and we got off that stage and we had such a blast. Like you take care of the celebs.
Yeah.
Not that anybody needs coddling or taken care of. And that place actually has that really cool, green room. Like it's downstairs.
Yes.
I don't like that downstairs, even though it's a bar and you guys take care. But upstairs, just right above,
That's
you can look
right.
down on the stage. It's cool. It's just
really neat.
And the history of that place. So when was the first year that you had? Was that the first year that you did it there?
Yeah. We did it and the only for years. So we had it there that year and then came back again last year, 2022.
And you had the band because you were like, they think they're musicians. They're so funny as a band.
Well, I'm a big fan. So I watched every episode of Alias.
Come on, give it up. I love that.
Right?
That's
so
awesome.
I'm like, oh, really? We can get Greg Grunberg's
This would be
band?
great.
That'd be great.
So that band, we're just so proud of. I mean, we've over the years and years and years, and then now we're doing Comic-Cons, and it's called the Action Figure. So everybody on stage has to have an action figure. So this is that's Amy Jo Johnson. She was the Pink Power Ranger, but she was also on Felicity with me.
Okay.
And this is us. Where was this? In Chicago?
No, this was L.A.
Oh, this is L.A.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this was L.A. Comic-Con. That's right. This was L.A. Comic-Con. But look at that. There's Jake on.
Jake's
on
playing the bongos. Yeah.
Jake plays percussion in the band. Yeah.
It's so much fun.
I mean, it's just so much fun, and you can see the quality of the video is so much better. And look at that guy, no hat. Behind the drums. So if you guys are ever in need of a band again.
Absolutely.
Okay, so from those humble beginnings, which weren't very humble, it was so cool. Is it daunting to the event grows every year, and you want to year over year make more money? Talk about numbers. Yep. I mean, it's an event that everybody looks forward to now. That's right. It kind of self-generates itself, and your sponsors, I'm sure, are there for the long term. But is it harder or easier?
We try to do something a little bit different every year. I will say the most successful event prior to last year was when we had it at the Avalon. And that year we raised $350,000. Last year we raised $588,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's something magical about the Avalon, but I think part of the secret of how we've been successful is, particularly the last decade, we have brought together a comedian committee chaired by Jim O'Hare, but with Wendy Liebman, Craig Shoemaker, Mo Collins, Alex Scooby, Shane Brady, really John Henson joined, and they help us find talent, and they help us put the comedy show together. Yeah. So they know our audience, they know what they'll respond to.
Yeah, I mean, you got Russell Peters, Alonzo Bowden, but comedians, they want to help. Everybody wants to help. Yes. So I'm sure that do you have to turn people away and go, oh, maybe next year? I mean, how many comedians can you have in a night?
Yeah, I think 2 is really good, and the most we'd have is 3, right? Because we want to give them time on the stage.
And then do you tell them, you got to be appropriate, because they'll just go right to the potty jokes and things. I mean, honestly, is that a conversation that you do have?
Well, I think our comedian committee knows our audience, so they'll first of all find the comedians that they know have a clean set and
right. Well, you don't have to be completely
no.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Dice Clay.
Right.
Exactly. Dice would do it. But that's you guys. By the way, I forgot to even ask. Huge fans of comedy, right?
Huge fans of comedy.
Yeah. The comedians obviously know the gig. They know it's a charity event, but at the same time, we played an event and we had a comedian open for us, and it was like we were on the side of the stage going, how is this going to happen? Because he just went for it. And, comedians get into the rhythm. Has that ever happened at one of your events where you're like, oh, boy?
Oh, yes. It was the first year that Mo Collins was emceeing for us, and Jim Jeffries was supposed to do a 10-minute set, and he set up this whole thing, and I remember Don Shields was in the front row.
Yeah.
Don is Mormon.
Oh, I didn't know Don was Mormon. Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh. It went on for a half hour, and I lean over to Mo and I tap her on the shoulder, and I'm like, how do you get people to wrap things up?
Yeah. I mean, Don wrapped it up. Don was like, I'm retired.
I'm done.
If this comedian doesn't stop, I'm going to stop being the head of the neurology department at UCLA.
And he left shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
No, he'll just say, please don't put me in the front row again.
Oh, really? Yeah, exactly. I got to say, though, Sankar, all those guys, neurosurgeons, neurologists, epileptologists, can you imagine the relief they need, the release that they need?
That's right.
They just need that, because when you do get them outside of their world and you're sharing a whiskey with them or whatever, some of them don't have great bedside manners. It's just they're so brilliant at what they do, but most of them do, and they're just wonderful people, and so they just want to come and laugh.
Right.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Maybe not Jim Jeffries, but
maybe not Jim Jeffries or Bill Burr.
Yeah. Especially with an event that's based on charity, you're like, don't start making fun of the thing.
Yeah.
What did he just
But this is what happens when we've been told at events. Remember, we've been told at events, big charity events, huge, or corporate events, keep it clean. Even because there's a lot of banter with the band. People like that. It's sort of that Rat Packy thing, where they're talking in between.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I've been on stage at Comedy for a Cure, and you just start... Jim and I mean, he's an old friend. I've known him forever. We never get together, but we talked about that on stage. We're like, how come these two big guys that act all the time? And he's so wonderful.
He is.
And we kind of went off script. I mean, it's fun. It's so much fun.
Coming up on Talk About It.
That was approved for fast-growing brain tumors and to shrink tumors in the kidneys.
Wow. So this sounds like it helps more than just TSC. These advancements are able to help other conditions and other rare forms of epilepsy or tumors.
That's right.
I had to just break into the interview because there have been a few times where I'm either at a charity event or I'm asked to speak at a charity event, and I'm listening to the person talk, and they make their point, and then they get a reaction from the audience, so they go one step too far. I've been the victim of this. I'll say something that I think, oh, it's funny, and it's not exactly appropriate to the event. And I don't want to rehash some of those moments, but if you were there, you heard it, and it's just funny. I'm sorry. It happens. It happens to the best of us. You're trying to make light of something, and I'm shooting a Pete Rose documentary right now, and we were at a cancer event, and Pete was so great, and he was speaking, and he said something that I was laughing my head off, and I was like, no. So here's my thing is just when your point is made, move on. So let's get back to TSC and what advancement. You guys raise all this money. Where does the money go?
Yeah. So since the inception of Comedy for a Cure, it's raised $5 million.
Wow.
Over the past 22 years. Now, some of the advancements we've made, we actually have 3 FDA-approved drugs for TSC.
So great.
As you know, 5% of rare diseases have 1 approved drug. So that's a huge advance.
And is that because of the amount of money? Let's talk about that. It's a rare condition.
Yes.
Even though it affects a lot of people, it's still rare.
Right.
But now it's sort of in fashion for everybody to say they're rare. I mean, honestly, it's like that term has gotten, I guess, more funding from the government and everything. Right. I mean, I don't care who I help. I'm helping everybody.
That's right.
But certain ones are indeed rare. TSC is one of them, and so they deserve all the attention. Was it just milestones, or the science, or were you pouring gas on that fire that they were getting close to certain medications?
So I think going back to 2001 when I started, we not only built a grassroots movement of our volunteers, we built a government relations program. And so there was a grandfather from here in Southern California he did a lot of lobbying. He was able to meet with Congressman Jerry Lewis, talk about his twin granddaughters, and got $1 million appropriation through the Department of Defense's Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program.
Wow.
One of those first grants way back in fiscal year 2002 explained the underlying biology of what we call the mammalian target of rapamycin, or mTOR pathway, which is the master switch. It controls cell growth and proliferation. You hear about it in relation to aging and inflammation. And the 2 known TSC genes work as a complex to control that pathway. So there was a big research conference where this connection was made. And from that, 11 clinical trials happened. Novartis had an mTOR inhibitor that they were developing. They got very interested. That was the first approved drug. That was approved for fast-growing brain tumors called subappendable giant cell astrocytomas, and to shrink tumors in the kidneys.
Wow. So this sounds like it helps more than just TSC. Like these advancements are able to help other conditions and other rare forms of epilepsy or tumors.
That's right. Renal cell carcinoma, certain kinds of rare breast cancers. So yes,
wow,
it's pretty incredible. The second approved drug to treat seizures associated with TSC, and the third just last April, literally the week after Comedy for a Cure, there's a topical mTOR inhibitor that was approved to treat facial tumors associated with TSC called facial angiofibromas.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Well, I don't know if there are other organizations or other disease conditions that are actually seeing that rapid. Like you said, it's like 1 in many, many years. That's right. 3. So that's something to be really proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, really exciting this year.
Yeah.
So in 2016, we launched the first preventative clinical trial for epilepsy in the United States. So identifying newborns with TSC before the onset of seizures. So mainly by ultrasound in utero. If an infant has 2 or more heart tumors, it's probable TSC.
Okay.
We had a clinical research consortium that found an EEG biomarker before the onset of seizures, so we used that as kind of the marker. Can we see a difference in stopping seizures before they ever start? Will it impact cognitive outcomes? And the readout from that trial is this year.
Wow, that's so exciting.
What is that process like in terms of just clearing, they always say cut the red tape, but getting, just getting over the hump of getting these things, in research and such?
Oh, getting them in research. Well, you guys don't get them in research. It's the farm. I mean, you in concert with the pharmacy company.
Right. We feel like we catalyze research.
Right.
So we have a research platform. We give general grants. We hold innovation workshops. How do we get newborn screening? How do we find an assay so we can test every single baby for TSC?
Yeah.
We have a preclinical consortium, so we've gotten licenses to mouse models. So we are trying compounds not only for industry, but for academics that have an interest in certain drugs.
Yeah.
A clinical research consortium that conducted the first preventative clinical trial for epilepsy. And then we started in 2006 a natural history database. So we enter people's information from their medical records, and aligned with that is a biosample repository. So now we have medical records, we have blood or tissue, so we have phenotype and genotype. And that is a very powerful research platform that truly has accelerated drug discovery.
Imagine if you knew your stuff. I mean, how far you
I
I mean, you're blowing me away with this. It's like all I do is talk about it. I mean, this is awesome.
Well, you have to do the top 10 list, so now I'm giving you a preview.
Exactly.
Here.
No, yeah. So again, by the time this airs, it'll be we would have already done the event, but this is a top 10 list of all the accomplishments from last year to this year, right?
Yeah.
And then and I'm gonna go out on stage and I'm gonna say, you're doing this wrong. You can't do it. You can't do a top 10 list without a drum roll, and then I'll do the drum roll in between
I'm
each.
super excited for the drum roll.
It's going to be good.
Right,
yeah. Most people are going to be paying attention to the drum roll only.
I agree.
Just so you know.
Greg, do you have to memorize all of these words?
No, I will not. I will. That's why I said. She sent me a script card. Was like, all right, so do this, and I'm like, no, I don't want to say any of that stuff. I just want to. I want to hit. I can do. This is
and
what
the
I
humor
do.
in between. That's it.
Yeah, in between. Exactly. No, it's going to be great. And I'm very happy and proud that I'm able to actually give to the cause. And there is a guitar that, so years and years ago, I partnered with Gibson Guitars, and they gave me 35 flat white Les Paul double pickup guitars. And they never do this without the electronics on them. And they said, send them out to any rock stars or any celebrities you can and get them to finger paint, because I was doing a big finger painting campaign. And all these celebrities were finger painting, and we were making greeting cards out of them and selling greeting card packs. It was really cool. And then they were sending these canvases back, just from Sly Stallone to Ringo Starr.
Wow.
I went everywhere. I did not take no for an answer. A lot like you guys. You guys you're doing it right. And one of the people was Lisa Kudrow, who's an old friend of mine. And she was so sweet. And this guitar that I'm donating is so beautiful.
Excited.
So she hand painted this guitar and signed it many, many years ago. And hopefully, someone will, because this is one of a kind.
Yeah.
She obviously did Smelly Cat on the show.
Oh, yeah.
I believe her dad was a brain surgeon or a neurologist. She has a connection.
Okay,
but she and I actually, she produces a game show that I'm doing right now called 25 Words or Less. She's one of the producers on that. And but she's the sweetest, nicest person. She's gonna be so happy that this guitar is going to you guys, and especially at Comedy for a Cure. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I was like, what other guitars? I have one from there's a few others. I have like Jeff Lynne. I have a few others, and that one though is just so appropriate.
So perfect. I can't wait to bid on it.
You have to bid on it. Yeah. Will I be on stage with you when we talk about this?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
good.
Right so we'll do our little bit
Top 10.
before the top 10.
Oh, before the top 10.
I'm going to ask you to talk about it.
Oh, good. Good,
Talk
good,
about
good.
it.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to show a clip from The Caregiver.
Yes.
Which is great, because I talked about The Caregiver
Yes.
last year, but this year I'll show a clip, which would
Yep.
be nice. And then Leslie,
Yep.
who is a TSC mom, she is so great.
She's amazing.
And Kelly, I mean, they are, what a wonderful family. And we went out and painted. Talk about painting. We went to an art therapy place.
It's amazing.
And because caregivers need, are you listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
You need to take care of yourself.
That's what they tell me.
I know. I'm looking at you right now. You clearly take care of yourself. You look fabulous. But I'm talking about
thank you.
mentally, we need, you just need it. And I don't care if it's just in the morning, just time to sit and have coffee. A couple of the caregivers that we travel the country, and I'll take, for a couple hours, I steal them. For a day of care, we play pickleball, or we go do an art therapy thing or whatever. And one mom said to me, she's like, I have never stood at a coffee place and looked at the menu. She didn't have time.
Right.
So she's just like, what? And she knew. It's not like she was like, a latte?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
But she was she was actually so happy that she actually had a moment to herself.
Yeah.
And it's those little moments. I mean, you know what I'm talking about,
do.
you know? It's like,
That's right.
it's hard. And so it's that taking care of yourself,
Yeah.
you know, and like on a plane, put the mask on yourself before you help others. You have to take care of yourself. So anyway, that's what the caregiver is all about. And it's been, that has been such a thing I'm proud of that show and also being able to work with people like you. I mean, it's just so great.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's such a great give back too, because I think you're totally right. And I think something that's really interesting is when you say to somebody who's a caregiver, like, they're always talking about how the person they're taking care of is, right? They're very versed at that. They can go through that unemotionally, no problem. But when you look at them and saying, how are you doing? They break down into tears.
Yes.
Because nobody asks that.
Yeah.
Nobody asks that. And when someone does, you don't know how to answer it.
Yeah. And most people ask it and don't expect an answer. They don't want an answer.
Or they don't ask it in the way like specifying you. Like, how are you
Yeah.
doing?
And also, by the way, caregiver to caregiver or people that are in our world, the three of us, there's just a shorthand. We just get each other.
Yeah.
We just do. It's like, you know, I don't have time to be phony and fake. I can't. And I don't care. And if somebody doesn't get it, that's their problem. Move on.
That's
Next
right.
person. So it's like when I see people that actually care, it's just wonderful. It's great. So I'm always going to be here to support you.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting me and coming on Talk About It. And thank you so much for what you're doing. Honestly, Comedy for a Cure is awesome. And it's a template for other people that are listening and going, wait a minute, you can do it right. You can have fun, but you can make a real difference. And I just love you guys. Thank you.
We love you.
We love you. Thank you for what you're doing too. This is
Please.
amazing.
I'm the
Thanks for
greatest
having
human
us.
being
This
in
was
the
so much
planet.
You
fun.
are. Infinity and beyond.
Exactly. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Talk About It. Remember, we're all human. We're all dealing with something, and a little compassion every day can change so many lives. Thank you to our special guests. Special thanks to our sponsor, SeizuresAreSigns.com. Thank you to J.J. Abrams for our theme music. Thank you to Nick Marzak for producing, directing, editing, and incidental music. On behalf of my fellow producers, Phil Gattone, Ken Lohenberg, and Nick Marzak, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you're not watching, go to talkaboutitonvideo.com to watch these episodes. They're now on video as well. I'm Greg Grunberg. Don't forget to talk about it, and I will see you next time. This podcast is a production of the Talk About It Company.